Blair and I, we're going to go hit those headlines. Bring out the spatula. The #1 tight end in the 2024 class has flipped his commitment. Landon Thomas is flipping from Georgia to Florida State. Now, he's actually been locked in with the Dogs since last July. The Noles now have the 5th-ranked recruiting class. Blair, how big a win is this for Florida State?
A monstrous recruiting win that Florida State fans, I think, would hope would now have some finality. Emily, Landon Thomas initially committed to the Seminoles back in April of 2021. So that's 2 years ago. This is his second decommitment. It's a huge pull to go into the state of Georgia once again for the top-rated player at his position.
Ooh, still a long ways to go until it's officially official. More on him in a few minutes with Steve Wiltfong. First, more news out of the Sunshine State, Florida, landing 5-star safety Xavier Filsaime, the #2 safety in the class, picked the Gators over SEC foes Georgia and LSU, among more. Florida now boasts the top 10 class with 7 commits. What did Billy Napier just add with the 5-star safety, Blair?
A lot of speed. One of the fastest defensive backs in America. He had a couple 10.5 100-meter times as a sophomore last spring, and his stock has been rising and rising. He's a defender with great straight line speed, and he has the range and instincts to be a great player in the SEC.
All right, the Gamecocks securing a commitment from 4-star offensive tackle Josiah Thompson on Friday. He is the #2 offensive tackle in the class. What did Shane Beamer just add for his O-line?
A franchise left tackle type with a great first step and excellent physical traits. Thompson is twitchy, he has great agility, and on top of carrying significant frame upside, it doesn't hurt that he's the state's best prospect. So Shane Beamer adds another big recruiting win ahead of the spring evaluation period.
Gotta secure those borders. We now have a top 5 for 4-star wide receiver Gatlin Bear. It's Boise State, Michigan, Nebraska, Oregon, and TCU. Bear is the 9th-ranked wideout in the class, and per our Brandon Huffman, he plans to visit all 5 schools before officially announcing. Blair, what are your thoughts on this final 5?
It's a great mix of options, Emily. You've got the defending national runner-up in TCU. You've got a rebuilding program in Nebraska. You've got Tracktown USA in Oregon. You've got Michigan, which has reached back-to-back college football playoffs. And then the home state school in Boise State. So a little bit of everything on the list for Gatlin Bear. And we'll be interested to see what the recruiting pitches are once he takes those official visits.
I feel like we're getting a little bit closer when we narrow it down to 5. Let's bring in our director of recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. Steve, I feel weird talking about spatula season without the man who coined the term. So let's talk about Landon Thomas's flip from Georgia to Florida State in a massive win for Mike Norvell. How did he and that staff pull it off?
Well, as Blair alluded to, this is like a spatula sword fight because he has flipped from Florida State to Georgia back to Florida State, and I don't think Georgia's going to put down their spatula the rest of the cycle here as they, really covet this young man as well. But look, Florida State, talking to Landon Thomas about his commitment to the Seminoles, he just said the energy around the program. You feel they really want you. He's taken several visits there, and I think it was the place where he felt the most love. And he just continued to talk about the energy that coaching staff has and that they're going to push you to be the best you can be. And that's what Coach Norvell tells him every time. Look, it's hard for me to pinpoint the biggest win on the trail for Florida State this weekend because they obviously landed Landon Thomas, but they also were able to get their coveted quarterback recruit, Luke Kromenhoek, to shut down his recruitment after a couple visits to Penn State, and the nation's #3 running back Cam Davis to shut down his recruitment as well. And they also landed prolific receiver B.J. Gibson. So Mike Norvell and that staff have the hot hand right now. The Seminoles are the hottest team in the country right now on the recruiting trail.
And speaking of Florida State, Steve, a player from the state of California, 4-star offensive tackle Manasse Itete was also able to make it out to Tallahassee. You put in a crystal ball for the Seminoles on Sunday. What has you leaning Florida State?
Yeah, and our colleague Brandon Huffman also logged his 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball in favor of Florida State. And it's an easy prediction when the young man tells you coming into the visit, Florida State was top 3, and coming out, they're in the first spot. You clearly know who the one to beat is. And look, he just really enjoyed being around Coach Alex Atkins, likes the way that coach coaches up his players and keeps it real with the recruits. And, getting around Coach Norvell again and seeing the turnaround that they had last season and what's in store in the future, he's very excited about possibly joining that.
All right, moving on from Florida State, but elsewhere in the state of Florida, five-star running back Jerrick Gibson visiting Texas this weekend. The Longhorns lead it in the crystal ball. You, of course, have one in for him there as well. Coming out of this visit, this most recent one, we know he's been there a few times now. Are you still feeling strong about your pick for Texas here?
Absolutely. It's clear that Texas continues to set the bar in this recruitment here, led by Tashard Choice. And Jerrick talked about getting around the electric energy that Tashard Choice has and loved being around the team and the chemistry that they have and the growth that they've had under Coach Steve Sarkisian and the staff. And then talked to his dad, and his dad said it was an amazing, amazing experience. And he highlighted the tailgating for the spring game, said that the tailgating for the Texas spring game is better than the tailgating for the Florida-Georgia cocktail party in October. So that kind of surprised me, but they love being there, love the atmosphere, love the tradition at running back at Texas, love what they did with Bijan Robinson. And he's going to take his last official visit, the last scheduled one anyway, the last weekend of June, after trips to Georgia, Miami, and Tennessee. So I think it's setting up nicely for Texas. Now, the program I'm keeping an eye on is Miami. I think that they've made a move in this recruitment. He was there earlier this month, and he's looking to get back on an unofficial visit before he starts his round of official visits. So Miami, a contender here, but Texas continues to set the tone.
Another player that Texas is in on is Micah Hudson, five-star in-state wide receiver. You put out an article on Monday, Steve. Who are some programs he's excited about at this stage?
Yeah, I don't think this recruitment's is not close to being done here. A lot of major contenders in here, and he talked about Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, the consistency and player development of those programs. Talked about Ohio State being receiver U, and that's a place where you can get pushed by the best. Texas, the NFL pedigree on that staff from the position coach to Coach Sarkisian really impresses him. And Texas A&M hanging around in this recruitment. He loves talking to Jimbo Fisher. But the program that I think is in a sneaky good spot, the program that he has the best relationship with right now is Texas Tech. He knows more coaches there than any other program. He feels connected to a lot of guys on that staff and in the locker room, loves Coach Joey McGuire and what they're building. And he's their top overall target. So I think Texas Tech is a program to keep an eye on for Micah Hudson going into official visits.
Interesting stuff there. 2024 five-star Ryan Wingo has, of course, come up quite a bit on this show in the past. He's the number 2 player at his position, so that's understandable. But this morning, you changed your crystal ball to Georgia to land the talented playmaker. That is the theme of today's show. Why Georgia?
Yeah, so we said Florida State's the hottest team in the country on the recruiting trail, but this could be Georgia's world here soon with some of the guys that they're in on. And Ryan Wingo is going to take his official visit to Georgia the first weekend. And we've talked about it on this show. We've talked about it on Whip Around. We think Georgia's been the team to beat for Ryan Wingo since mid-March, but continuing to talk to the Wingo camp and other people with knowledge of that recruitment. It was time to change my crystal ball from Tennessee to Georgia. Now, I'm not ruling out several other schools that are in the mix, including the Vols. And that new rule just came out where kids are not going to be limited to just 5 official visits. Ryan Wingo is a prospect that I could see taking more than 5. He's got 2 scheduled. He's got 1 the first weekend of June for Georgia. He locked in Missouri for the weekend of June 25th. Oregon's in play for an official visit. Tennessee's in play. Alabama, Texas A&M, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State. So this is a young man that's been to a lot of campuses, likes a lot of schools. I think Georgia's the team to beat. I think Brian McClendon's going to be out there on Monday. They've built a great relationship with him, but he could take several official visits. But I like where the Bulldogs stand right now.
With official visits being unlimited, I'm really interested to see which player across the country leads the nation in official visits later this spring and obviously heading into the summer and in the season. Steve, as we discussed earlier, Landon Thomas off the board for Georgia. They're still going to try with him, but they look really good for another player at that position. That would be Jaden Reddell. You have your crystal ball on the Bulldogs. How close could assistant coach Todd Hartley be to adding another top player at the position?
Well, he has 3 June official visits locked in: Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. He's been to Alabama and Tennessee a couple times now, went to big games on both campuses, returned to each place in March. And I think Georgia and their track record at the position, his relationship with the staff, his relationship with guys that Georgia's recruiting and have committed, I like where Georgia stands going into that round of official visits. I think the Bulldogs are in a great position here. And with that, I logged the 24/7 Sports crystal ball for Georgia here. But obviously they have some stiff competition, particularly from fellow SEC heavyweights, Alabama and Tennessee.